Hi, I'm Cath Sewell. I'm from Lancashire Music Service. I'm part of the leadership team for Lancashire Music Service, and I've been with them 5 years now, which still feel like quite a newcomer. It's a very well-established organisation. Most of our work is delivering music in schools, children, young people, and whether that's singing lessons, instrumental lessons, after-school music clubs, bands and orchestras. And we have music centres and opportunities outside of school as well. So I'm lucky enough to work across Lancashire. Just a little bit of background, because I think it's a bit relevant to how LCEPs work and my interest in being part of LCEPs and the LCEP journey. I've worked in arts organisations, programming education programmes that run alongside artistic programmes. And my big sort of mission, if you like, sounds a bit grand, in my career has been about breaking down those boundaries between artistic programs and education programs, and seeing it all as an artistic program or as an education program, whether you're an audience member or a school student, and your engagement with the arts is just as valuable, whichever side you come from. And the breaking down as well between necessarily formal and non-formal types of education. So certainly in music, you see the sort of formal education and formal music education perhaps in the classroom, or going through your grade exams on an instrument, and your non-formal, maybe self-taught songwriting, playing in bands, and that kind of self-led learning, and where that really works and really makes for a rich education for young people is where the two kind of combine seamlessly, and you're learning skills to support your own sort of self-expression and musical development. So it's been a big interest of mine of how that sort of works. How that works together, and also picking up where Sarah left off about communities and a collaborative approach with communities, co-creation with schools and their wider communities. For a long time in the arts sector, you would talk about outreach programs, and that language has changed quite a bit because it felt quite maybe top down, and we were bringing art to the communities, and actually it's about the art that belongs to communities. It comes from them, and I think arts organisations are starting to think really, well, it's not starting, have been for a while, thinking really creatively about how communities are sort of making that art their own, that sense of ownership. And at LCEPs, I think kind of the way they work in a joined up way sort of represent that for me. So I'm lucky enough to be part of 2 LCEPs, and it's been really interesting to be part of them from the beginning, because a lot of the language that we were presented with, we were a random collection of cultural organisations. So in Lancaster and then in Preston, which is the other LCEP I'm involved with, we were presented with a kind of starting point and some fantastic rich conversations that happened around that. And it was very interesting, the similarities, and it's probably not surprising because the language around the Arts Council's Cultural Education Challenge has really driven it. So I think the two have developed almost sort of in parallel. And they've ended up in different places, but the development journey has been quite similar. So Preston's LCEP is called Preston Creative Exchange, and some of our missions very similar to what Guy was talking about at the beginning: connecting arts and cultural organisations, schools and young people, a local partnership network that supports all children and young people to access high quality cultural education, signposting opportunities, devising programmes where there are gaps in provision, supporting young people's voices to be heard authentically, helping organisations and schools develop inclusive opportunities, and advocating for the value of the arts and culture and education. So those are very similar, and I think it's sort of maybe thinking about this presentation as what is the value of having so many LCEPs, and it's about the local, it's about that community. If your objectives are the same, they could be almost exactly the same, but that might look different in Preston and Lancaster. In Preston, I think we've got some quite unique challenges. We're at an earlier stage in a way. We've had a lot of changes of membership, and I think Lancaster has the benefit of quite a well-developed cultural sector and quite a connected cultural sector, whereas in Preston it's maybe a little bit more disjointed. We currently have a good range of members. So UCLan, the big university, Preston, Lancashire Heritage Learning, the Harris Museum, Blaze, Curious Minds, of course, Creativity Works Preston, who I'll come on to talk about in more detail in a minute, and then a really good representation of schools. So we've got secondary schools, primary school, and specialist school as well. So I think we do quite well in our representation of schools, and that's really informed our programming as well. Lots of those schools are engaged with Arts Mark and Arts Award, and that's been able to give that quite a high profile within our LCEP as well. We also identified that in Preston there are quite a lot of small scale arts organisations and community based organisations that maybe sometimes seem quite isolated. One we connected with was Creativity Works, that do a fantastic job working with young people in a sort of alternative education setting. So they're young people usually in mainstream schools that are referred to Creativity Works for an alternative curriculum to follow a particular interest in the arts that they might not be able to access elsewhere because of special needs or a disability. They work with Arts Award and Arts Mark. But Creativity Works are our coordinator, so they've been really involved in the LCEP, and it's managed to give their work a higher profile as well. And we'd like to, a big next step for us is to expand our membership and looking for those other organisations, and particularly those working with some of Preston's diverse communities, looking to expand the profile of their work, link them up with schools, create partnership projects with maybe larger cultural organisations or Preston City Council. So that's going to be a big focus going forward, and we're also thinking about how we can meaningfully involve young people and their voices as part of our steering group as well. I'm probably running out of time. I've got my presentation, Avant, so have you done the gesture yet? You have, yes, that's fine. I was just going to quickly profile a project we ran last year. We ran a Creative Careers event, and we did it as part of a national programme which was called the Discover Creative Careers, and it fitted exactly with our LCEP agenda. It brought together schools and cultural organisation and gave pupils encounters with employers and employees in the cultural sector. And we ran a day with the Harris Museum, and 64 young people attended from 4 schools. But I wanted just to share a very quick personal story from one young woman who attended that day. She was from a specialist school, Mountwood Academy, who are part of our steering group. They're a fantastic school, and they have a big belief in the arts, and it's the way it allows their young people to express themselves with their variety of needs in a safe and creative environment. She came, and her question to the panel was how can her artwork be displayed in an art gallery, and she was actually able that weekend to attend a workshop and the art they produced there at the Harris. She was supported by her care worker. She's in care, and she attended several sessions at the Harris, and her artwork. The following Monday, the young person came into school beaming with excitement and stated that her dream had come true, and she'd finally had one of her pieces of art on the wall of an art gallery. She documented it in her Arts Award, and to this day she talks about how it's encouraged us to pursue a career in the arts. So I wish I'd left more time for that, but I think that's a really powerful story about how a project that brought together cultural partners in a school can affect an individual in a really meaningful way.